Chaz Marler from Pair of Dice Paradise here. And with over 85,000 board games and expansions listed and ranked in the Board Game Geek database, it's always nice to see a game hold its own within the top 300 games listed on the site. Especially a game that's nearly 18 years old, as is the case with Lost Cities, currently ranked number 270 on Board Game Geek. But even old favorites can use a refresh every now and then, which is why I was intrigued when I discovered a promo expansion for Lost Cities last year. As its name implies, the 6th Expedition deck for Lost Cities includes a 6th deck to manage during the game. But does the extra spice that this expansion provides justify the time and money it would take to track this thing down? Well, let's take a look at what the Lost Cities 6th Expedition expansion is all about, followed by my thoughts on it. First off, for those of you who may be unfamiliar with Lost Cities, here's a 30-second overview. Lost Cities is a two-player game in which both players work from a single shared central deck containing cards in 5 different colors. Each color is numbered 2 through 10, and the opponents will alternate turns, picking up, playing, and discarding cards in attempts to make the longest, non-consecutive numbered runs in each color on their side of the board. The more cards each player accumulates, the higher their potential score. And there's also several special handshake cards in each color, which can increase your score for that particular color. Now, once the deck has been exhausted, players count up their points, and the highest final score wins. The base game of Lost Cities includes a board to hold the piles of discarded cards in each color, and a deck of oversized, beautifully illustrated cards. The 6th Expedition expansion adds a new 6th color, black cards, which includes the numbered cards 2 through 10 and the handshake cards. Essentially, the 6th Expedition lives up to its name by providing a 6th color of cards to be managed by both players during the game. It's really as simple as that. But how well does this expansion mesh in with the base game that has stood so well on its own without any expansions for nearly 2 decades? Well, that is the negative thing that I encountered with this expansion. How well its cards integrated into the base game. Now, to be clear, I'm not referring to game balance or game mechanisms at this point. I'm referring to physical differences in the expansion's cards caused by assumed differences in their production, which prevents them from integrating completely seamlessly into the game. The cards in the 6th Expedition deck look like maybe they were punched out instead of being die cut, and I assume this due to the presence of small perforations along their edges. And as a result, if you look for it, you can usually tell where the black cards are sitting in the deck, even after they're being shuffled in. It's not a deal breaker, but it can be distracting. The other con is that, since the expansion's black deck of cards isn't part of the base game, a spot for them isn't included on the base game's board. Instead, you have to place the map card that's included in the expansion to the side of the board. And this is really not much of a problem. It's more of just a nuisance than a problem. It's like receiving unsweetened iced tea when you were expecting pre-sweetened. The initial response might be, disappointment, but then it's followed quickly by a realization of, I'll survive. But those are very mild negatives, which are overshadowed by the positive experiences that I've had incorporating this expansion into our games of Lost Cities. An obvious potential positive of adding the 6th deck is that it provides the option of changing the dynamic of the gameplay. For example, its presence means that players could, potentially, each focus on completing 3 decks, instead of just 2 each and fighting over control of a 5th deck. This can give the game a substantially different level of tension. Whether you think that change is a good or bad thing, I'll leave up to you. But it's nice having the option to manage the level that players are competing for the same resources. But I think my favorite option that this expansion provides is the ability to introduce variants, like shuffling the expansion into the deck, but then removing several random cards and setting them aside. So you're playing with the same sized deck overall, but each of the 6 colors will now have several unknown numbers missing from their sequence. Need that blue 7? Well, is it in your opponent's hand and you just have to hold out long enough to get it? Or would that be a fool's errand because it's one of the cards that was removed from the game? It turns the experience into a gutsy combination of Lost Cities and no thanks. So, due to the way that the 6th expedition can be used to alter the length, tension level, and variations of Lost Cities, while still retaining the fundamentals that make the core game the great experience that it is, I think it is totally worth tracking down a copy of this promo expansion if you enjoy Lost Cities. The expansion has been available at conventions in the past, and perhaps Cosmos will continue to have it at upcoming conventions like Origins, Gen Con, and BGG Con this year. However, as of the time of this recording, the 6th Expedition expansion is also available from the BGG store for about $5. Check it out if you'd like to add some options for variety to your search for those lost cities. In the meantime, I hope that this overview of the 6th Expedition expansion for Lost Cities has been helpful. And for more board game news, reviews, and commentary, be sure to subscribe to both the Pair of Dice Paradise and the Dice Tower YouTube channels, and follow us on Facebook and Twitter for more board game conversations as well. Until then, I've been Chaz Marler from Pair of Dice Paradise. Thanks, and take care.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Need that blue 7? Well, is it in your opponent's hand? Is it in your opponent's hand?